Well, Boo Carter's time in the Orange and White has officially concluded. Josh Heupel and company released the former defensive back over the weekend, and Austin Price with VolQuest was the first to report that. Josh Heupel confirmed that with the media earlier today, that Boo Carter is no longer a member of the Tennessee football program. And the key thing to take away from this decision by Josh Heupel goes back to what he said in the post-game presser following the New Mexico State win, that Boo Carter was not meeting the standard to be in the locker room, to be on the field with the team on Saturday. And that is what's been the trend for this Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, going back to Nico Iamaleava and Josh Heupel emphasizing that this program is more than just one player, right? They're not going to be held hostage by this one player. Kind of goes into another example with Ruby Whitehorn and her decisions off the court not being reflective of the standard and the culture of the program. And now most recently with Boo Carter and how he's decided to hold himself, how he's decided to operate is not in alignment with the standard and the culture of this program. And what is emphasized and what is reaffirmed in these coaches' decisions is that these players, if you're not in alignment with the culture, if you're not in alignment with the standard, regardless of, how well behaved you are, inside the lines, and despite what's going on outside the lines, there is a black and white rule that you need to follow, and it's to be in alignment in the culture, to be in alignment with the standard. And these are just three very different examples of players not meeting the culture and standard requirements, and the coaches having to make really tough decisions and letting them go. But it is for the betterment of the culture and the betterment of the program. And it's a kudos to these coaches who are able to go out there and make some really tough decisions, especially in the age of the transfer portal and the NIL. And who knows how much those two factors led to Nico staying on the team as long as he did, and it being until this Orange and White spring game that Josh Heupel let Nico go. And then, the second chance that Josh Heupel gave Boo Carter, despite, leaders on the team kind of voting him off of the team, how much of that had to do with ties to NIL, ties to the transfer portal. There are so many wrinkles to it, but at the end of the day, it is the standard and the culture that gets upheld with these decisions. And it's not only that it goes beyond just the one player, it goes beyond just the coach, right? They have to make a decision that is best for the university, that reflects the university in the best way. And I know his absence for Boo Carter on Saturday, his camp was putting out, it was a hip flexor issue. Josh Heupel says that the availability report was reflective of what the trainers were saying. He was available to play according to the trainers, according to Josh Heupel's decision, and not putting him on the student availability report. And him not being on the field on Saturday was because he was not meeting the standards. Point blank, that's what Josh Heupel said after the game. And I think it's commendable that they're able to make these really tough decisions. And it's upsetting because at times it seemed that Boo Carter was really taking advantage of the second chance that he got within the program, right? He was kind of pseudo-suspended after going AWOL over the summer, made his way back onto the team and in good graces during the stretch of fall camp where he was a full participant. And I think it was UAB or a game earlier this season where he ends up getting the game ball for his efforts on defense, signs that he's making really the right choices and is doing his part to be an active member of this team, going back to what he did in his first season on Rocky Top. And then it gets to this point where we're not really seeing him on punt returns. We're not really seeing him take too many defensive snaps. Oklahoma was probably the most glaring day and game where he wasn't very much involved. And then here comes New Mexico State, and he's nowhere to be seen. Something had happened within the program where he was no longer meeting those standards, no longer meeting the requirements that the team set out in front of him as a result of what happened over the summer. And this comes from a guy who really was able to force his way into the conversation of getting snaps on offense, wanted to be more involved on defense, and things happen. He gets in his own way, and he never saw any snaps on offense, never able to do enough to get that kind of reward. And Josh Heupel and company just have to make the tough decision. I think it's clearly the right decision to eliminate distractions from the program, to eliminate players who are not reflective of what this culture needs to be. Oftentimes it doesn't take much to kind of soil some of those things. So a tough decision for Josh Heupel and company, but certainly feels like it was the right one. And now they turn their attention to the Florida Gators, where it's a night game in the Swamp, and it's a huge rivalry game. They've not won there since the early 2000s, and this team just really sounds like they're ready to turn the page and focus on the guys who are still in the orange and white. And of course, Carter saying he's entered the transfer portal. It'll be interesting to see what team picks him up after, again, a 6-month-long or so saga that has happened in his last year on Rocky Top. But we'll have so much more on the Florida Gators and Tennessee Volunteers matchup on Tuesday, so make sure your notifications are on so you don't miss any of that. I'll talk to you guys later this week.